Hello, everybody. Thanks for
What did you think?
Yeah, should we call on someone and for direct feedback right now? That was a really good episode. I think whoever was in charge of
Isn't Sue amazing?
which episode it was really, they're all very emotional, but that one I think in particular. Amy, I'll start with you since you were right here. Maybe if you want to talk a little bit about, as you're veering into a docu-series era, you've done a couple of these now. What are you like? Do you have something specific that you're looking for when you're like looking for subjects, or is it just that you hear about something and it piques your interest and you're like, oh, I gotta explore that?
At our company, Paper Kite, myself along with Kate Arend, we have worked on a couple shows, making it, baking it, and yeah, that's next. And when we were approached by Scout, which are, incredible Emmy Award-winning producers of such things as Queer Eye, about this project, what we were drawn to was we like to try to work in the unscripted space in a way that isn't about intimidation and humiliation, really. We're not really that interested in the idea of watching people fight. It makes purely, I think it's just a personal taste. We just get too stressed out. So we just were drawn to the humanity of it all, the silliness of it. We try to make projects that will connect us somehow, will be some kind of cathartic release when we watch, and would be something that we would watch. And I think I can speak for Kate and I both, where there's enough real stress and strife in the world, so we're not that into traveling in those waters.
Did you, and maybe Kate, if you want to take this one, did this come to you via the book, or kind of how did you learn about the cleaners?
So the folks at Scout actually sent us the book. We share the same agent, and Amy and I read it. And I, if my memory serves me, it was around the holidays a couple of years ago. And we texted each other like, this book is amazing. This is so cool. Like the title, first of all, we were like, what is this? And then we met with the guys at Scout and everyone and JJ, and we were like, this is something really, really special here. And of course, we'd been fans of Queer Eye and all of the work that they do. And there was, like Amy was saying, there was this earnestness to the idea of what death cleaning is. It's not like makeover. We want you to change your life. Like the message of it is, which we'll get into, but the message of it is this kind of wanting to make something better, not necessarily like throw out all of your stuff and start over. And it felt right. And it kind of all came together. And then, the process of finding these three wonderful Swedes began.
Yeah. So I think that actually leads me right into something else I was curious about, which is, for the three of you, were you a package deal at the beginning, or were you?
Do you live together? Are you roommates?
Let's really get into the hot goss of your roommate situation. But yeah, how did each of you come into this show?
I mean, actually, we didn't know each other before we were casting in the casting process. We got to know each other, and we hit it off directly. So we started a WhatsApp group, and then we had contact from that day since that. And then
I remember we had a day when we had a break, and I went out with Ellen, helped her to buy some lingerie, and then I knew that we had a special connection.
What is your WhatsApp group called? Do you have a special?
It's actually we have an image of a woman that she looks like she had 7 hard years, and it's called lokalvårdsteknikerna, which means that you're like a cleaning technician. So we actually did that quite early on, because we didn't know what this was going to grow into, but we had this great connection from day one at the casting. So that group is still on.
Yes.
Yeah. So for the three of you, what was it that made you want to be on this show? I can't imagine you were out there. You're not sending in your reels around necessarily. This is a very unique kind of combination of correct show and correct people.
I think it's amazing to be given this kind of platform to raise the very important questions about life and death and how we can connect to each other, not only when things are going smoothly, but also when we are facing hardship like loss or we're grieving. And I think the producers were so trusting in allowing us to do this our Swedish way and pivoting in all the needs that needed to be pivoted while shooting these things. So I think for me it was really like a dream to raise these kind of issues that we all need to talk more about because they are already happening. I know, like for every person in this room, I know you have related to Sue in a very personal way because we all have our own versions of this. And this is like the magic of the show. Finally, we can talk about these things.
I think for me it was about the book because it was presented, and then I knew that this was not going to be like a makeover show being funny on TV and go shopping with people, because that's not really what I'm interested in. So I just thought it was such a cool concept because it's also something that's very integrated with myself. I do it myself, my family does it, so it felt just a very natural combination with my skills as an interior designer and also being Swedish.
Yeah, and it's for me that work with this at home as well as a professional organizer, interior designing, helping people. I think it's important to just look at your things and see what serves you here and now. And so not about just that you're like death cleaning. It's something that you do it, of course, to not put a burden on your loved ones, but also don't put a burden on yourself. So look what serves you here and now. That's really one of the things that I...
Amy, Kate, JJ, I'm not sure which one of you was kind of the lead in the casting process, or maybe it was everyone working together, but what was the alchemy that you were looking for?
I guess I'll say this one. Hi.
Hello down there.
Hello.
Hello, Sauce Queen.
You know, it's, I mean, like at the beginning of any project, right? You're still, everything gets kind of mushy at the beginning. And we knew we were going to go in the way of like, redoing some things, the before and after that Amy mentioned. We knew we wanted to have the concept of death cleaning and that came from the book. But, you know, as we saw the chemistry of the three of them, and it was a chemistry test, right? And we saw them, and we were looking at designers and organizers and all sorts of, types. And the three of them, and we didn't even know we wanted three, I think, at one point. We weren't even sure, right? And so they just stuck out. And we were realizing, we were saying, like, when you make a change in life, like when any of us change anything, like really change something, you change mentally, emotionally, and physically. And that was something I really wanted our subjects to go through. That was something we really wanted them to have that change. And so when we talked about mentally, emotionally, and physically changing, suddenly we realized we had the head, the heart, and the hands right here, right? We have, the jazz hands at times, yes. And so it really, they became the mythology of the death cleaners from that. And that was something that just worked. And we in lockstep, I think, all walked and, saw that happening together.
I promise I won't ask you to say everything in Swedish, but I had scribbled down that harta. How do we say heart in Swedish?
Hjärta.
Hjärta. Okay. And then there was, I believe,
Amy, you're going to have to say that now next for narration.
Yeah.
Go, Amy.
I know. I can't wait for people to point out what I got wrong. 'Cause it'll happen.
I'll do the mispronunciations. There was also a wit. Kvicket?
What?
Wit. The word for wit. That was what you.
Kvicktänkt.
Oh, it's easy.
Yeah.
Kvicktänkt.
I have so much sympathy for the clients on the show who I think that was Sue, like kind of going over the words. Bless her heart. Did you always know you wanted to have them do Americans?
I think we were really interested in creating a show that took advantage of the similarities and differences culturally between Swedes and Americans. I mean, we like to focus a lot on how different everyone is, but and there is a directness. The Swedish language has a lot less words than the English language, and you can tell in the way that people sometimes want to be very simple and direct. And there's I think, a real kindness in the clarity of that. And we also wanted to, there's a lot of stereotypes with Americans and Swedes, and some are true, some are completely wrong. We wanted to kind of play around with that feeling. And also, frankly, we think that there's a very specific type of sometimes disconnect and loneliness we feel as Americans that is something interesting to poke around in, you know? We were joking earlier that like the show is like poking around America's basement. And if that sounds dirty, it is. But I think we would be always open to going to different countries and figuring out the ways in which they relate to their things, because I think there are specific differences in the ways countries relate to their things, even in the ways we do regionally. Like New Yorkers, for example, have a much different relationship with things than some people who live in other parts of the country. We are like Swedes in that we are forced to death clean because of the size of our spaces. So we wanted to enjoy the comedy of that, of which we really lean into, and there's a lot of it. And we also wanted to in turn show how, alike and similar we really all are.
For the Swedes, what struck you the most as either surprisingly similar between all of us, or something that was really different? And I would also be curious kind of what the real talk is on like what your perceptions of Americans going into this was.
On the emotional side, I was surprised that we had like coming here, I knew Americans are like, yes, you can do it. Like you can be the president, like you can do anything, kind of that thing. Whereas in Sweden, we have the opposite. Like you shouldn't believe you can do anything. You are just like any other person. Like we're very level-headed, or like not level-headed. What's it called? Like the same, equal kind of, a middle ground. And that's not ideal either. Like, of course not. So we have kind of the extreme. So I think we can be very inspired by American culture in many ways as well. But meeting with the people in the show, I was still surprised by how many that in the face of pain, they still couldn't reach out to their friends. They still couldn't open up and talk about the gravity of the situation. And as Shauna, who has stage 4 lung cancer, she said, I'm also guilty of that. When anyone asks me, how are you doing? I say fine, and I smile. And I just heard this wonderful expression that how are you has failed us. And I think it's so true. Like, we need to find better ways of connecting to each other. And I think this show really displays a wonderful way of how we can show up for each other when we're laughing and enjoying life, as well as when we're having a really tough time.
Did anyone else have an observation on what they learned about?
Of course, it's hard to not mention that you have more stuff than we do in Sweden. You actually have. And one of the things that are very different is your seasonal stuff. You have a lot of everything. I just mentioned, like, you don't have like a special cake stand for Halloween in Sweden. You put the cakes on a normal white plate. We have like basic stuff. We use it, and we maybe buy a napkin.
You don't have a Halloween room in your house?
No, we don't have it. And we don't hire a storage unit either to store the Halloween things.
We're going to do the opposite in Sweden. We're going to go over and just give you a bunch of things and start celebrating.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so that was one of the things that, yeah.
On that note, what sticks out as something really unique or surprising that you found in someone's house on the line of Halloween decorations? But is there anything really specific? Yeah. I'm thinking of episode 1.
Yes. That was funny.
Well, it was a very dusty dildo hiding very deep down in a drawer.
I mean, one of the things that Margareta talks about in the book that we talk about in the show is you should have a box of things that you trust with a friend to throw out.
Burn it.
What are the things you don't want to pass on? You know, do you want your children reading your journals, or, right? Even the thought of it, like maybe there are things that you want to set aside to you know, to maybe not have them handled by your loved ones.
I was just going to say like a burn book, but then I realized that's means something entirely. Not to quote Mean Girls back to you. A burn box, I suppose.
Yeah.
How casting the client, is there a better term than client?
We call them heroes.
Yes, that's right. Hero. Okay. How did you, was there like a call put out for like who has a gnarly home situation that they really need help with, and how, what was it about? And maybe if we want to use Sue as like our example here, but like what was it about each person that really felt like they would do a good job? Because you also have to have an element of like comfort with the camera and all of that. So like a good story is not enough, right? Because you have to make TV out of it.
Yeah, it you know, I mean, like anything you cast, you put the word out, you start meeting people and so forth. And then we went and met people and went through their homes and saw firsthand really what was to be done. And it was a couple of things. They have to be willing to let a TV crew into their homes. And this is more than just a makeover show. I mean, we're not just cleaning out a closet and saying thumbs up. I mean, we're, you know, we get in there and we talk about vulnerable stuff. And so there had to be a willingness to be able to do that, right? And a readiness. And you know, not everybody was always ready. It was kind of scary. First of all, being on a show, you know, for regular people, one of the things, you know, that Amy mentioned a moment ago, you know, this was not about manipulation and making people fight. And it's not that kind of show, obviously. This is really, really going in and helping somebody change for the better. And one of the rules we had that we really wanted was not to clean out something, go put it in the garage so we could get the shot and leave. It was very important to really death clean. And so a lot of it was very daunting, actually, going to these houses. It was a lot. But, you know, it was that. It was, and they were afraid along the way. And I have to say, our death cleaners, like off camera even, we're always helping them deal with the next layer and the next layer. You know, we film for days with these people, and it's, you know, narrowed down to this moments that you see. But they really were involved. They were not like coming in and being like, cool, let's get the shot and leaving. I mean, it was, you guys were really, that was one thing I loved about it. And the whole crew became involved. Everybody was on a journey together, which was something that just made, I think it bleeds through to the show now. So we were proud of that.
Is there a strategy to working with the heroes, and what kind of work needs to be done off camera or behind the scenes versus on camera?
We invented it as we went. It was season one. If there's a season 2, I think it'll be a little easier, right? But yeah, I mean, it really was daunting. We got there and we saw, and then we really realized the amount of time we had to film it and how to do it. And there were a lot of meetings, a lot of late nights, a lot of hands on deck, and you know, that would just work and around the clock, and we figured it out. And what you see in this episode, it was specific with the art, but you know, it's important, the things, and I learned along the way from these guys with the Swedish stuff. You know, you don't just throw it out or you know, necessarily kick it to Goodwill or something, because Goodwill's fine. But I mean, you can very specifically find a place to donate it or a person to donate it to, so that something continues a cycle of life. That's actually the beauty of it. You know, these items, Amy mentioned early on, time travel through objects. And that's something that I think we watched happen. So a lot of it was seeking out and researching. We had, you know, producers researching, where in Kansas City can we donate this? And then we would talk with the heroes, and it would be, you know, and make sure they were a part of that. And every single episode is so different, because every issue, every house was different. Every, you know, point of the story from the story we told, it was different. So it was a per episode conundrum and journey.
What did the three of you learn about the process of doing this job from the experience of doing it for the show?
I think what I learned, the biggest takeaway for me, is that everybody wants to be close to their authentic self. because that's the journey. When we go in, we have our toolkits. I mean, I'm a professional designer, psychology organizer, but it's that meeting and that journey we do together, hand in hand, walking through, because it's a philosophy and a process. It's not about, oh, bye, goodbye, you know, we did this, now it's done. It's, you ignite something. But the takeaway was that what I feel, also being in contact with the people on Instagram and social media, talking to them still, because they're still excited about what happened last year, and still I'm doing this now. I've death clean and I went through this, and but it's I think a lot of people live sometimes, as you said in the beginning, Amy, about being lonely, isolated, and that's also a guilt and a shame of being your authentic self. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, because this show is like an anthology going through 8 different people's lives, applying this. And I think, I think the connection, I see it anyway, watching the show, like coming through, which I was a bit like afraid of with editing. Are they going to see how we connected? Because this is a new thing for me. So I thought that was my biggest takeaway.
Maybe this isn't an obvious question, but was there a level of sadness when you have to leave these people and like kind of go on to the next person?
Oh, yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Very glad to have contact.
Because it was also, we have this last scene where we actually leave them.
Yeah.
You know, and normally so we actually left them and that was like a really sad moment. Yeah. I don't know how it was in this episode that you saw, but it's in Susie's episode. You know, she sits there, you like feel a bit like, sorry, we're leaving you now. So it's so sad.
No, but we've been sharing this incredible journey that JJ is talking about, both on the physical level, but the emotional level, like. It connects you so closely, and those goodbyes, they are so very real. Yeah, it was always like, yeah.
And Swedish tears are saltier than American tears.
Fresh sea air up there. Is there a larger crew doing the actual cleaning and organizing, helping you guys behind the scenes, or is that like, are you just a miracle maker?
I'm a miracle maker.
Like,
I have my magic.
That's magic.
No,
we had a really great team. The whole team,
Yeah.
like JD talking about the whole crew. We were like a big family, like you probably get on shows like this. But I actually said that to JD also when we, you know, after we've been talking after the show, that, you know, all the memories that we have together, because this was a show that evoked a lot of memories within people with their own loss and grief, also working on camera, seeing what's going on in that room at that moment. So I think JD can fill in on that actually, about how people reacted actually working with this show.
It's true. Yeah. We had, you know, when we first went in, we gathered as a team and you know, talked about what was going to happen, and it was a lot of logistics and things that you normally see going into production of a TV show. And then we said we're going to be going into. There's one of the women, she has terminal cancer. There are people who have lost, as you said, that are, you know, recent. We have some very, not every episode, but some of the episodes, there's some real fresh grief, and so we were very careful in how we hired and how we staffed up for the show, that made sure that, you know, because we were going into someone's home anyway is invasive. If you've ever seen a unscripted series take place with real people, it can be very invasive. We're going through their drawers literally and finding dusty dildos, as you say, you know, but when you're dealing with something of the heart like that, it can be very intense. So we opened the door to each other, you know, behind the camera to come talk about it. And we had a camera operator who, there's an episode where, Godfrey, a lovely young man that we worked with, lost both of his parents within a year of each other. And one of our camera operators had gone through exactly that and was behind the camera just weeping. And I sat with him for very late one night, just all of us, you know, talking. And I know these guys would sit with them too. It wasn't like they were like, oh, we're the hosts. They were, I'd have to pull them off talking about a question about who helped, you know, they would do it. And it was Kansas City in the summers. It was 103 degrees. And so I was like, guys, you got to look good for the next scene. Come away. So I would sometimes pull them away but it was legit. Everybody really was, working together on it, the head, the heart, and the hands, for real.
And also, Do you think there's anyone who worked on the show who didn't go home and death clean or send the book to their parents? I know I sent it to my
100%.
parents. I mean, everyone, right?
Yeah, I get so many messages from the ones in the show also that I'm doing the work. I am getting my shit together.
Godfrey just told me that his friends started to do death cleaning.
yeah.
It's like spreading. As soon as you
Yeah.
see their glow, it's like, oh, I want that. What did you do?
Yeah.
Exactly. No, it happens.
Yeah, and we talk about, not every show is about recent loss. It's, your kids got to get their stuff out of your house, or you're in a new relationship, or you're in a new phase in your life. Like the idea that death cleaning becomes spring cleaning becomes this thing that you keep checking in. Am I still this person? Do I still care about these things? Do I want to let go of this part of me, or do I want to hold on tighter than ever and also share the story of me with other people? So we balance between like the different transitions and ways in which people change.
I guess, so did the three of you death clean then after this? Did each of you go through a process after maybe it was even before you made the show when you read the book, but
The Americans, are you asking?
the Americans, yeah.
You're talking to the Americans?
Yeah.
The Americans.
Yeah. I think I know I was very inspired to, especially when you have kids, you really want to keep a lot of their stuff, and it feels really special until then you have a lot of special stuff and then nothing is special. So that was really interesting. And also, it's fun to go through stuff with your kids to remind them, they get to tell you the story again of what they remember of the thing that they made. And sometimes to teach even our children the idea that we don't need to hold on to things to have the memory of something, and that we can also share the things that we have, that there's some great lesson in the letting go of those things, that we are not our things. And the story and the memory is really the thing that we keep. So that has been really interesting in terms of trying to figure out, two kids, teenage boys, like what is their most special pair of sneakers? Like what what is which color Crocs will we hang on the wall?
Always keep the Jordans.
Yeah.
I think I'm in a constant state of death cleaning now, where like I'm just
Same.
I've adapted this sort of, I'm like going through my bathroom and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't need, what is in this drawer? It's yes, that's correct. It's not left. It's kind of taken up the corner of my mind now that it hasn't left since we started working on this show. It's nonstop. I love it. It feels so good.
Yeah, it's same. I mean, it's become kind of a constant practice, and something that was actually very personal for me going into it. My son passed away in 2020. He was 11. He had leukemia. And so actually the same week that Bev passed away, Sue and I talked a lot about that timeline. So this show happened all through my second year of grief, which is sometimes the hardest in some ways, at least for me, because after the first year, the planet keeps turning, right? And you have to keep. So I literally was death cleaning. My wife and I, we've been death cleaning, and it's really helped us know how to process that on a level that I didn't see coming. Here you have, a seeming job come by, and it really became much more than that. So,
yeah, that's a really good reminder that kind of you probably don't even think about the audience that's going to find this and like what each of them are going to be going through, and maybe like where they are on anyone's grief path and what they might need from this show. Well, thank you guys all so much for making the show and for doing the death cleaning and for joining us here today to talk about this. This has been great.
It's really our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.